Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Carruthers and I'm the communications manager for MotoAmerica. And this is our weekly podcast, Off Track. I do the show every week with Sean Bice, who's in, I guess, the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. And Sean, how are you today?
I'm great. Hunkered down in my palatial bunker, if you want to call it that. And I think you are too, out in Southern California, Paul. It's kind of weird how we're all like kind of peering out, above the, whatever, to try to see if we can see anything yet. So
yeah, it's kind of it's crazy times. I mean, it's something I've never experienced. I'm sure you're probably in the same boat, but we've had some things go on in the world, obviously, in our lifetime. But this one just seems a little weird. It's I was at the grocery store this morning, and you got to kind of line up, and they let you in a few at a time, and of course, there's no toilet paper, which I'm almost in need of, but I figured there's more important things in life than toilet paper. You could make do with something. So I was able to grab a couple rolls of paper towel, and yeah, it's just kind of weird. I mean, it's, we did the barber test, so we were actually out and about, traveling and stuff. And everybody, it's just kind of, I think everybody's just kind of going, and have different feelings about stuff. And you can tell everybody's just kind of a little on edge out there, but it'll all get better. I think everybody's doing the right thing, and nobody at MotoAmerica is working at the office. Everyone's kind of working from home. So it should help. If people continue to do that, I think things should get settled here eventually.
Yeah, seems like last week was a lifetime ago, but when we came back from the test, it was strange. I flew from Birmingham into Detroit, and then Detroit to Columbus is only like a real short little jaunt. It's kind of up in the air and back down again. And I didn't have a seat assignment, so I went up to the gate and I said, hey, I don't have a seat assignment. They said, oh, well, where do you want to sit? And I've never been asked that before. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, there's only 7 people on this plane. And I mean, that was early days. It's gotten even stranger since then. But that was kind of nice usually we're packed in like sardines. So I was like, well, that's nice. And we had some social distancing on that plane and everything too. So
yeah, but you had that down.
Yeah. Strange time.
Today's kind of a cool podcast. I'm excited for this one. We've got Joe Roberts on, and Joe, as everybody knows, he actually one of the only motorcycle race of road racing kind anyway internationally that's been held this year was at Qatar. It was the opening round of the Moto2 World Championship. And Little Joe, as I like to refer to him as, I think I got that from Wayne Rainey, who calls him Little Joe. But Little Joe not only qualified on pole position, but ended up getting 4th in the Moto2 race, which was by far his best result. He was in a battle to the very end, and he was only 1.5 seconds from victory and just 1/10 of a second from being on the podium, which would have been obviously his first podium. But he did America proud. I think it's funny because we can bring him on right now. But Joe, I've got to tell you, it's like I've been so frustrated watching you race because when you're not on that front timing screen, it just drives me insane. And then now all of a sudden my life is a lot better because I can actually watch you race. And I want to congratulate you on the job you did in Qatar, because it was spectacular.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Yeah, my life's a lot better now too.
I bet. So you've been traveling obviously quite a bit, and you're back home now in Los Angeles. I saw you went to Mexico, I think, for some friend's wedding or something, but you're all settled in. And I mean, of all the people that want to just go race a motorcycle right now, you must just be dying based on the fact of how well you did in Qatar. And then now you're in a holding mode like the rest of us.
Yeah, it's weird. You kind of, as a racer, you always know where your next race is. You have a schedule, how hard, like when you're supposed to be, really hammering down with your training, really doing everything you're supposed to be doing. And like, that's the last, off season was that for me. I knew exactly when my first test was, and I had my whole off season planned exactly what I wanted to do. and so when we get to Qatar, my mindset is just, okay, let's roll on from here. And now we're on to the next race and this. And now it feels like I'm back in off season again. I don't even know. Well, it's almost worse. I don't even know when I'm racing again, but obviously it's difficult times, I think obviously the whole world is affected by this. So I think it's difficult, but I know we'll be able to race again. And I'm this thing that happened in Qatar, I don't think was a one-time thing. So we'll be able to repeat it.
Joe, I've been waiting to ask you this question and anxious to ask you, and I've been trying to figure out how to ask you. And right now, Paul's cringing because he knows when I preface something with, I can't figure out how to ask him. But it's really not.
I'm scared.
No, but it's not so bad. I mean, I'm not trying to, by asking this, diminish what your talent, because your talent is through the roof. We've known that for a long, long time. But I wasn't maybe paying as much attention as other people were. Paul seemed less surprised. I was like, oh my God. I mean, it was just a crazy result. And we were like, because of the fact that MotoGP wasn't there, it seemed like there was even more attention on you guys. And I'm sure from your perspective, it's, kind of been a long time coming, but, does it make sense to you that probably America really woke up to what you did? And were you at all surprised?
I don't know. I guess as a rider, I've always known it was possible to do this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have continued to race at the highest level. I always knew I was able to do something like this, but I didn't know I was get on this bike and do it this quickly. But I guess sometimes when I see an opportunity to do well, I just kind of like go for it and just, I don't know. And it's kind of hard to describe. But I mean, it just all kind of fell into place. I'd showed up the week before for testing, and I felt immediately on the first lap, like I even told my team when we flew into Doha, I said to them, I was like, man, I actually hate this track. I never do well here. I never have a good feeling with the bike and the sand, and then the daytime and nighttime. It's always tricky. And it was weird. I got on the bike and we went out. We were on like the harder tires, just to do like a little, run in. And I was already like really competitive with the lap time, like right away, the first run, and my team were surprised. And as soon as I got out on the track, it was just weird. I guess as a rider, sometimes it happens to you. You just realize, this is the purpose of this track and how I can go fast here. I just have to do this. And I put all my attention on trying to set up the bike to do one thing. And once we got there, with my crew chief, Lucio Nicastro, who's incredible, the best crew chief I've ever had in my life. We got there and it was amazing. I mean, I felt on my pole lap, I felt like I could do no wrong. Like the bike was doing it for me. I just felt like there was nothing else I could do but that lap. It was crazy. I've never had that in my life, just being able to like do exactly what you wanted to do on a bike. I never thought that existed. So yeah, to get that feeling is like, it's just I don't know how to describe it. I was in Mexico last week and I just sat down at lunch and I was just smiling for no reason. And my brothers were like, why are you smiling? But I don't know. I'm just filled with something I haven't felt in years, Yeah,
that's awesome.
Last year, I want to ask you, last year I did this story for the website where I actually asked all the champions in MotoAmerica last year. This kind of came out of the fact that Ford versus Ferrari, the driver of the GT40 said, he was always looking for a perfect lap, and he claimed he did a perfect lap. So the question I had for our 5 champions was, have you ever done a perfect lap? And I thought the answer was going to be varied, and it was. Rocco Landers said he thought he did at one point. Andrew Lee said he's never done a perfect lap, and he doesn't know if he ever will because there's always something that's going to go wrong. So you had a record-breaking lap. Was that in your mind a perfect lap?
No rider will ever say they've done a perfect lap. I'm just saying. I won't even say it's. I mean, I guess it's a little contradictory because I did say that. I did say how like I could do no wrong, but if I look, I've been like, obviously I have nothing to do right now. I'm just sitting at home. So I've been like scouring through all of the practice sessions, and I've watched my pole lap. Maybe, I mean, they don't show the full lap, but I've been watching the little snippets of what they do show. And I'm like, man, I was just offline there. Oh, just off apex there. And I could have just been, and I started thinking the whole lap. I was like, man, I could have done that a little differently. So I even told my crew chief, I was like, I think I can do a 57 around here. And I did a 58.1. So it wasn't a perfect lap, but I think it was pretty close.
Damn close.
Yeah, pretty close.
Well, Joe, looking back at where you've come from and where you are now, I mean, it's been tough to watch, and I know it's been tough for you being there, and I know it's been hard on the family, and everybody put so much effort into this. But people also don't realize, I don't think a lot of them realize how close you are, but how far you are, if that makes sense. I mean, when you're in 20th or 23rd or whatever in qualifying and you're a second and a half or 1.3, that's the blink of an eye for most people. Did it give you confidence that you are that close, or does that distance seem like a mile when you're that far, when you're second and a half back?
Yeah, I mean, it's the funny thing about this class is I say it's more, the hardest thing about Moto 2 is the mental aspect of it. The stress of being in that class and what being at the back actually does for a rider. Because, as a rider, you kind of want to, I think in any kind of sport, you thrive off of confidence, and you have to almost be a little bit cocky with yourself and tell yourself you're the best. Because it makes you do the unthinkable and be able to amaze everybody, who's watching. And so when you have that mindset that you go over there and you want to be the best, but then all of a sudden you're, I mean, I always think in Moto 2, there's different levels of entry to that class. When you're first year, obviously you're going to be struggling at the back. And if you're within 2 seconds, or, if you can get within a second, that's amazing in your first year. If you can get within a second and get a top 20 or even a point, that's like an amazing year. But, once you hit your second year, you want to start creeping into the top 10. So that was my mindset last year. And when I was back where I was in my first year, I just felt like, whoa, what's going on? Am I not like good enough to be in this class? Is there a reason why I'm this far back? Like, what's going on? Statistically, every rider I see, they should make their second year this much better. Like I always I look at like all the top riders, all the champions from the past of where they start and then where they get in their second year. And I mean, obviously some riders in their second year just win the thing, but that's a different story. But so yeah, mentally it was difficult for me last year because I set the goal to be top 10 consistently. Every race was my goal for the year. And, I trained for that. I thought about it all off season, and then, showing up, and then we were battling what we were battling with. It was kind of, I never gave up. I really pushed the whole year, but when it's just like, you feel like you're just punching a wall and you're never going to get through it, it was the feeling. But there's always light at the end of the tunnel, is the kind of the thing of the point of all of it. You just have to keep pursuing it.
Well, there's also, and I mean, not to speak badly of what you had, but I mean, there's also the thing of, if you ride a piece of shit as hard as you have to ride it for that long, when finally things change, you realize like you actually might have learned a lot during that period.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the year I had last year. Actually, I think I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to deal with the pain of losing and the pain of feeling like a loser, just not like,
right.
Feeling like I was walking around the paddock feeling like I didn't belong. It was the kind of mentality that I had then because it just, felt like that, so, and in the public eye, obviously it's hard to root for somebody who's always in the back, they don't, that's the hard part about it. But in a way, I think that's why I've come out so strong this year, because I've been able to kind of appreciate what I have. And, if I'd been given the best things my whole career, I'd probably have something to complain about even right now, even though some things are going great, but right now I have nothing to complain about. It's everything I have right now. I'm so grateful for, my team, my bike, my rider coach, and the support of my family around me and my manager, everything.
Did you ever get to the point, did doing something different ever cross your mind? Like, I need to go backwards to go forward again, or were you just determined that you were going to make this work?
Last year I changed a lot with my riding. I tried to adjust a lot of things to make the bike work, and it actually taught me a lot of things that helped me now. I was kind of developing this skill in Moto2 where I was just kind of riding the front into the corner too hard and holding the brakes, just being too aggressive on the entry. And because I just felt, with this front end, you could do something like that. But now I've kind of changed last year kind of helped me to understand how to I guess in a way, like look after the front end a little better, to be more smooth with it. And I've been braking in it a different way now. I feel like almost like I'm riding like I used to when I was younger. When I went over to Europe to do Moto2, I started getting a lot more aggressive with the brakes, and I think I got some bad habits, but when I was racing in the US, I was a lot more kind of flowing. I feel like I'm almost riding like I did that year in 2015, in Superstock, where it was just a lot more smooth and flowing and everything. It's kind of how I feel now. And even when I watch myself, I've been able to watch myself riding a lot now, which is awesome. When they show you on TV, I can learn a lot of what I'm doing.
Sean, I'm going to keep going for a second, but I promise to give you your time.
That's all right. I'm saving them up. Joe, I'm ready.
So Joe, honestly, it's like, I'm not going to tell you I gave up on you, because I never did, and I wouldn't. But
Thank
like
you, Paul. Thank you.
At Qatar, I mean, I was actually like, it made me, I was riveted to every session and obviously the race. And I got the feeling all the motorcycle road racing fans in the country were doing the same. Did you feel that? Could you feel like, America's pulling for me, and I have an opportunity here to really, make Moto2 popular again in that country?
Yeah, honestly, I thrive. It's going to sound bad, but I thrive off attention, in a way that like is really positive, not in a negative way. Like when I have the support of everybody around me, I just want to take the most out of it. I want to just give everything I can give. It was weird after on the Friday, the free practice 2, I'd set the all-time lap record. And, I had some media attention just from what I'd done in the testing, just normal stuff like, oh, what's Joe going to do? But then, after I did that and I was top the timesheets, the next day in the box, there's cameras all over me, people, interviewers, all these things. And it's something I haven't actually experienced being in this class before. And, I don't even think I've ever really experienced it in my career. So it was definitely a different, it was something different. And I think in free practice 3, it was kind of taking my attention away almost. Like I was thinking a lot about it. I was like, wow, I'm on cameras. I could see myself on the big screen. And it was something that I could see could take my attention away. But I kind of realized this one thing. I just, I can, it's all in my capability to do what I did the night before. I can do all of those things. I don't have to worry about not being able to repeat it, and I just channeled all of that attention into trying to even do better. It was weird before qualifying. I remember coming into the box, everyone was like, don't worry, Joe, because you can do this. You can be pole, you can get the pole position, but don't worry if you don't. And when I was sitting in the box, I was looking around at all the team and just like, it went from being like, you know, I try to keep it all fun inside the box, everyone chatting, joking, having fun. And that's the one great thing about my crew chief too. We always joke about things before I go out, but it was completely silent before the qualifying. And I was like, could feel all the nerves and the expectation of everybody. And I started to feel it in myself. And I just have this thing that I thought about where, you know, this is no different than me at my local supermoto track, hopping on my bike, trying to beat my all-time lap record from that track. It's the same exact thing. You know, just the cameras, everything doesn't matter. It's still a motorcycle, and I can just do what I do. So I had that mindset of I'm just riding my supermoto around the track. And yeah, I don't know, before I started the lap, I came down the straightaway and I just took a deep breath and I tried to hit every mark I wanted to hit, you know? So yeah, it was awesome.
Did it intensify the following night for the race? I mean, that all those feelings, was it more so, or do you think you got it out of the way with the pole lap?
No, I wasn't sleeping at all that night. that weekend, man. I was like, that was the hardest part of the whole weekend, was like getting all the messages not hardest part, but like, you know, the part that made me think about the riding. Cause you know, I wasn't riding. I was just sitting in a hotel room and I was like getting antsy. I wanted to be on my bike. You know, when I'm on the bike, all of it goes away. But like when I'm sitting and I have time to think, I start thinking about like, you know, I was getting all these amazing messages, all these nice support. But I wasn't, I couldn't fall asleep till like 2 a.m. each night. And I kept thinking about it. And yeah, for sure. But in the race, I remember I got a message from Ben Spies. And he said, you know what? Actually, all the pressure is pretty much off. So you just go out and have fun, you know? It was kind of what he told me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Joe, I want to talk to you about 2015. You mentioned that for a minute, and actually before that, I want to mention, you know, you spent 3 seasons with the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup, and which is pretty rare. I mean, you're among probably a handful of riders that were spent that many seasons with Red Bull Rookies. You know, you had a win at Brno that first time you were on the track. And then you had a couple more years there. But that 2015 season, when you raced in Superstock 600 with us in MotoAmerica, which was our first year of our series, by the way, won the championship. You know, you that year had 9 wins in 11 starts and 1 second. So you were on the podium 10 times out of 11 starts and sealed the championship early at Laguna Seca. Did you? I know before that with Supermoto and the things you did in your career, you won races, but did you learn how to win that year? And do you have to sort of learn how to win? I hear that with a lot of stick and ball sports where it's like, well, they just don't know how to win the game. Is there anything to that with racing a motorcycle where once you win? I mean, example, we saw that with Garrett this past year. You know, he started winning some superbike races and then he was off. We've seen it with a lot of riders. They get on a roll and it's like, oh, I know how to do this now. Is that the case? Was that the case with you in 15? And did that help you going forward?
Yeah, I think 2015 was one of the most important years of my career. It gave me the belief in myself. You know, I had I never quite what's the word? I guess I never quite achieved a lot of things. I mean, I had won races before, and I'd done some, in 2013, and won 5 races in a row when I did the wild cards in Super Sport. But I never I never won a championship on a grand scale before. And that's definitely something that I've taken with me. Obviously now the level that I'm riding at is a lot higher, but there's something that winning does to a rider that nothing else can. I think once you learn to win and once you can win, I mean, it's a superpower in a way. You just are able to repeat it. Once you can do it once, you can do it 100 times. Why not? If you could do it one time, why can't you do it again? So that's the kind of the mindset that gets taken, I think, into with a rider when they win. And obviously that year was amazing. I think, yeah, like you said, I got second in one race and then I crashed out of another one, but every other race I won. But that year I just wanted to be in the super sport class so bad. So every time I got on the bike, my mindset was to be faster than the super sport guys. I was trying to beat every time that they did. And I really wanted to race against JD and Garrett and Josh and everything. So if you ask Josh Heron, he was my teammate then, all I ever talked about was beating his lap times on the Superstock bike, So, and then we went to New Jersey at the end of the year for the last round. And then I had set the pole. I think it was a lap record as well at New Jersey, but
yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, when I get into that mode of like, when I know I can win and be dominant, I just kind of take it on and just go for it and go with it. I kind of ride the wave in a way. I think it won't be as easy to do what I did this year, because I'm racing against the best riders in the world. But I think we can do something similar for sure. Yeah.
Well, that point that you made about that year with Superstock and that you were on track at the same time as the super sport riders, and you had that carrot in front of you, and we've heard this before. Is the idea to be sort of the overlord in a class that you obviously have more talent than everybody else, or is it better to be, kind of coming from behind and having somebody to go against? And that was the case for you in 2015, as you said. So we've heard with Moto2, a lot of people say it's the most difficult motorcycle road racing series or class in the entire world. So now that you're in that and you've had the success you've had, is that more of that continuation of, wow, there's a big carrot in front of me. These guys are the best. And I have to be on it to do it. And I'm trying as hard as I can. Is that a little bit of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the carrot is still in front of me. I still haven't won a race or gotten on the podium. So the carrot is still there. And I don't know if I want to, I guess in a way I want to prove something, not to everyone else, but also mainly just to myself, that I can be the best in the world, is kind of it's what me and my dad have been doing since I was a little kid, it's just not to be the best in the world, but we've just kind of been at this my entire life. And I would hate to not go without winning a race in the world level or win a championship, that's been my goal ever since I was a kid. So, and I think America has been waiting for it long enough,
That series this year, I mean, when you look at that Moto2 class, it's really wide open. Would you agree? I mean, it's like there's not one guy in that class that you would think of as being the favorite to win that championship. It might come down to just who can consistently be the best guy week after week. Do you kind of have that sense as well?
Yeah, when I look at the champions of that class, I've studied a lot of their points, of the riders last year who were the top three. It's always just about being consistent, and not crashing out, not fluctuating too much in your position, always trying to be in the top five, not necessarily winning every single race. It's always just about being there, on the podium or close to it. So I think you'll start to see during the year who is that person, that could just always be the top five. In this class, there'll always be like a kind of a rider who can do a one-off race. I feel like maybe not as like consistent the whole weekend, but they'll figure something out for the race. If they came from behind, they'll figure something out and kind of put something together. But it's mainly the riders that are the champions in this class will be consistent in the whole weekend, every weekend, every practice, they'll be consistent. So, and that separates the best from, just the one-offs. But I mean, you can't say that anybody's not good in this class. I mean, everybody, from even my pole lap, which was an all-time lap record, I think 20th place was only 1 second off or something. So, there's no way to say that anybody in this championship is a bad rider. Everyone's incredibly fast. but it's just about, what I found this year, just being able to take everything you have around you and piece it all together,
Joe, you were born in Los Angeles, but your mom and dad, I believe your mom and dad are both British descent, right? They were both born in England.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul and I were talking about this, and can you explain this, other than the fact that you are an American, your team is called American Racing. Why is that? What is the basis of that name? What's American about it besides you?
Well, the point of it is to bring America, try to create more of an American presence in the World Championship. I've always thought it would be cool to have, before all of this came about, I always thought it was cool to, have an American rider on an American team. I've even said it to my dad, like, wow, if only we could just get like an American team together to compete in this championship. I think that would be awesome. And basically my manager, Eaton Football, who is based out of here in LA, has always, had always wanted to have a team of his own. And basically through some things, like, came into be that he could buy the team that was previously another team. And he lives in LA. He's lived here for 20 years and wants, has always wanted to, support American riders. And that's the reason for this, is to create, a portal for American riders, to bring American riders to the top of of the world level, So that, I guess, in a way, is the point. Maybe he could explain it better.
I think a lot of people would be surprised by what I'm about to say, but it's like that. I don't think they know that, like, back in the days when you're still young, obviously, but when you were really young, I mean, you traveled around and did some dirt track racing, and actually Sandy Rainey, was Wayne's father, was like your guy, right? I mean, he was helping you and getting you to the races and building your bike, and you raced at places like the Sacramento Mile and things like that. Do you look back at those days and think, what that they had some impact on what you're doing now?
Yeah, no, I miss those days hanging out with Sandy. It was awesome. I came pretty close. Became close with Wayne back in 2000. I think it was like 13, end of 13. And he wanted to help me out. He actually introduced me to Eddie Lawson, who Wayne wanted me to go out to this track Milestone, which unfortunately is closed down now, but it was out in Riverside. And he took me out one time, and, and it was I remember hanging out with Eddie, and Eddie told Wayne, he's like, "Oh, I don't want to hang out with some punk kid, and I want to deal with some young kid hanging out with him." But I kind of knew that maybe Eddie was going to be like that, so I played extra nice that day and just tried to be as nice as I could. And we've had a great relationship, me and him, riding motocross every week together. But yeah, and then also Wayne really wanted me to get into dirt track. And, I started riding dirt track when I was a little kid, but I never really took off with it. I kind of switched to mini road racing pretty quickly. And Wayne swears by it, believes that it's a real skill to know to be a top road racer. And I agree for sure. So yeah, he and Sandy, I got to spend a lot of time with Sandy, and I mean, those two have been in the dirt track thing for a long time, and it was a really cool experience. I really enjoyed hanging out with him and going to some American flat track events, and I wasn't terrible at it, but I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. So I miss those times for sure.
It's funny. The first time I remember seeing you, Joe, it might have been in Birmingham that year that you swept that, in the 2014, I believe, when you were on the Team Hammer bikes, but maybe it was even before that. At any rate, first time I remember seeing you, you were with Keith Code, who we have an older group of fans that listen to this podcast. So a lot of people know about Keith Code from having taken a school, and he's still got an active school, the California Superbike School, that people are involved in. You were his protege. And then this past year, we saw Keith with his protege in Rocco Landers, and we saw a lot of similarities there in the dominance that Rocco had working with Keith. So based on that, do you still have a relationship with Keith? Do you still kind of touch base with him once in a while or often? How does that work?
Yeah, definitely. The Superbike school have been like the building blocks for my riding technique, I would say. A lot of the things that I use now and I worked with Keith even the off season last year and worked on different, techniques with visuals and things that help, just stuff that we call each other and just think, spitball about things and like, oh, he has an idea and he'll ask me to try it or something. So, I still have a great relationship with those guys. I love them all to death. So, they've helped me a lot in my career. I think I might see Keith next week. Actually, he wants to ask me about my pole lap. So I live like 5 minutes. I live like 5 minutes away from him. So we've always been really close.
That's cool. And the other thing to that end I want to ask you about is your kind of more recent relationship with John Hopkins, or maybe it's been going on longer than we thought. The only thing I want to say about John Hopkins is through his career, I remember being kind of annoyed back in the day when because of, I guess, Hopper's background with England, it seemed like the United Kingdom kind of claimed him as being their rider. And I've been concerned about that with you because even though, again, I'm going to point out you're born in LA, both your parents are British. So have you had a situation where these Brits are trying to say, hey, he's our rider, like they did with Hopper? Have you ever heard that story about Hopper?
I kind of, I heard about it. I mean, he was living out in England. He's got a British wife and he spends most of the year out of England. So, but yeah, I know Brits like to claim they're one of their own, but, I was born in California. I've lived here my whole life, so I'm an American, but it's nice to have like, an English background in a way. I have family that live in England and I go and visit them and, so I always enjoy going to England.
That's good. Just don't start wearing the Union Jack and your leathers. That's all. Keep that off.
We won't. We're not going to let them get stolen from us.
No, don't worry.
Hey, Paul, I got a little thing I want to do with Joe, if you're cool with that, but I didn't want to dominate. If you had some more questions or whatever, I know we're getting towards the end of the podcast.
No, you go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, Joe, one of the things I've been doing is it's not every Friday, but often I'll do this thing called the Friday Five, where in lieu of, doing a long drawn out interview with riders, I ask certain riders that generally are kind of new to our series. I do it with a lot of junior cup riders. I'll ask them 5 questions and a bonus question that range from kind of semi-serious to really goofy. So I would like to ask you my Friday Five. Even though it's Thursday, but when we're doing this, but the podcast will come out on Saturday. So in between, here's the Friday Five. Can I go for it?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1, what song do you listen to before you go out on track?
I was listening to Train in Vain by The Clash before I went out on track last weekend.
I love that song.
Such a good song.
They never actually sing Train in Vain during that song, right? The lyrics don't even say anything about a train, do they?
No, I don't think so. But it's such a good song. It always gets me going.
I love that song too, and I love the fact that it's more from Paul's and my era a little bit. So
my music will be similar to your guys's for sure.
Yeah, I've always known you've had a real penchant.
He's old school.
Plus, you're a musician. You and your brothers, right?
Yeah, not anymore. I'm actually really sad about it. I picked up my bass the other day, and I'm like, "Fuck, I forgot." Well, I can't say "fuck," but I.
Well, you can.
I was like, "Damn it! I forgot how to play, man. I'm so bummed." I hopped on the piano. I used to come up with these little piano bits, and like I've forgotten all of it. My mind only has corners in it now. And turning the throttle.
There you
That's
go.
all I have.
Okay, so speaking of corners, here's the Friday Five question number 2. If you can only have one, you can only have one of these two. Would you choose acceleration out of the corners or carrying corner speed?
Acceleration out of the corner.
Wow. Because you figure why roll through the corners when you can just get on the gas?
Most important part is getting
Explain
on
it.
the straightaway. You don't want to blow the exit. That's how you make up your time. Especially in places like Qatar where you have long straightaways or things like that. You gotta set up for those. A lot of riders will try to just when you try to keep too much corner speed, then you keep too much lean angle. And then when you go to open the throttle, you're just going to be spinning up the tire, especially if you're on harder tires. You want to try to get the thing picked up. So I'll always take acceleration and over high corner speed. I mean, you got to have a little bit of both for sure. Yeah.
Right, but in this thing, it's only one or the other. So
I'll take acceleration.
All right, I like it. Horsepower. Number 3, who is your closest friend right now at the track? I mean, during the season, or who are you closest to?
I would say Edgar Pons right now, but maybe some other people are going to be pissed with me for saying that. I'm friends with a couple people. I have Albert Arenas as well, who's a Moto3 rider, just won in Qatar, actually. He's a really, really awesome guy. But I would say at the moment, I spend the most time with Edgar Pons. I'm actually thinking of going he just moved to this part of Spain, which is called Galicia, which is the most northern just above Portugal, actually. Most northern part on the Atlantic side of Spain. They have tons of surfing and things like that there. So I love surfing. So I think I might go there. And they got a lot of motocross tracks and supermoto tracks. So I'm going to hang out with him there this year, probably.
That's cool. Okay, 4. Has anyone over in Europe asked you if you are Kenny Roberts' son or grandson?
Practically all the time. And I'm like, please, no, I don't want to be his son.
No.
No, I'm kidding. I love Kenny. He's such a cool guy.
We used to joke about it in MotoAmerica, but after a while it was kind of fairly obvious, but I figured that would be the case in Europe since, obviously Kenny is probably, even more well known over there among average people. And they're probably thinking, and another American named Roberts. So it's funny how certain things last forever.
Me and my crew chief had this, he has this thing for me. The minute I met him, he's this funny Italian guy. The minute I met him, he's like, "Oh, your last name is Roberts, huh? Are you related to King Kenny?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, so you're related to Julia Roberts?" I was like, "No." And he's like, okay. And then he was like, "Okay, well, if you are riding terrible, I'm going to call you Julia Roberts. If you're riding great, you'll be called King Kenny." So I have this ongoing joke with him every time I get off the bike. I'm like, "What was it, Julia or Kenny?" So yeah.
Well, absolutely King Kenny at Qatar, I'd say.
Well, I didn't win the race. So for him, it was, no, I'm just kidding. He was stoked. He was absolutely stoked.
Okay. Number 5, and this is almost a question only for Joe Roberts, but it's an either or, Joe. Number 5, socks or no socks?
Why is that a question only for me?
Yeah, I don't get that.
Well,
can you?
Okay, let me explain it. Every time I see you, you're not wearing any socks. At least, I'm not talking about when you're in your leathers, but I see you so often with your, well, it's been a while, but you used to see you with your pants rolled up and no socks. Do you still not go without socks a lot?
I wear socks all the time, unless I'm wearing.
Unless he's not.
Maybe you've changed.
Maybe you're thinking of Jake Gagne or something. Every time I saw Jake Gagne, he had sandals, and it was I'd see him and it was freezing cold temperatures, and he'd have flip flops on.
Yeah, that's all he has.
Maybe that's who you're thinking of. But socks.
Could have been your brother too. I used to mix up your brothers sometimes. Your brothers used to not wear socks, or maybe they still don't. Is that true?
There's a lot of socks in our house. So,
Sean, you're turning this into the Friday 5 hour.
Okay, I got one more. Here's the bonus question, Joe Roberts. The bonus question, and drum roll, please. Has a fan ever asked you to autograph one of their body parts?
Autograph one of their body parts? What, like a Talladega Nights situation? Is that what
I don't know.
About?
Could be. I know Tom Cruise signed some body parts. It ever happened?
Maybe not. No, I don't think so. I don't think I have. Not yet.
Garrett Gerloff signed a baby last year.
Signed a baby? Wow, that's incredible. That's funny.
All right, I'm cutting you guys off.
Hey, I was just thinking maybe you should ask me something about John again, because I feel like I didn't give him his piece, I don't know if that's cool.
Go
with you
for
guys.
it. I mean, it obviously, he's obviously made a difference because, your results show that. And I think, I don't know if you've had a rider coach previously, but I mean, it seems to be, it's not something new, but it does seem to be.
Yeah, I haven't really had it in this type of way before. So, and it's really been a huge help. So I wouldn't mind saying something else about it, if that's cool.
Yeah, talk to me about it. I mean, tell me what he brings to the party.
Well, no, I just found with John this year that, something I wanted. I always looked around at like other teams that had rider coaches. Started noticing it a lot more in the last few years. I really wanted I always wanted like an ex-American rider who could kind of understand what it's like to be an American in the world level, and I always looked up to John in a way, because even ever since I was a little kid, I watched that movie Faster, and, I noticed he raced the same mini row racing championships as me, and kind of grew up in the same kind of way. I mean, he grew up in San Diego, but he's still a Southern California guy. And, so I always I had my eye on him for a long time to try to come and help. And, when we finally were able to kind of, last year I got hooked up with him through my gym that he's connected with, the W training facility. We were able to start working together. And, I kind of went into, I didn't know what to expect working with him, because you never really know until you start working with somebody. And man, it was, as soon as we got to the track, especially at like Jerez, we just gelled right away. I don't know how to explain it. I just started talking about things that I struggle with on the bike, and it was exactly the same things he struggled with. And it was almost like we were just like similar riders, but in a different time period, and I just really found so much, like I could just lean on somebody, to tell me, to kind of help me with things, and mentally as well, being able to just kind of, before a qualifying session. I mean, he even, helped me come up with a strategy for doing my pole lap, just a certain thing that kind of helps warm you up before you ride. Man, it was incredible. I'm so stoked that I have him this year, because just being able to have somebody that, has been through something that you've been through I can't tell you how nice it is,
Yeah, it's got to make a big difference.
Good to have that. Joe, before we wrap up, I got one more quick little question I wanted to ask you. I had noticed that you, on your leathers now, as well as back when you raced in our series, there's a particular sponsor, or at least a logo or a name that's on your leathers that has been all along. And it has to do with, I believe, video production. I assume that's your dad's company, or a company your dad is associated with. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's my dad's company.
Can you talk about it for a minute? Yeah.
Well, my dad's been my biggest supporter my entire life, so I've wanted him to have a presence somewhere. I think it's almost like just a respect thing to him, just being able to have been there for me my whole life, and without him, it wouldn't be possible. But it's basically my dad's company that it's in the visual effects, like they do like robotic camera arms. Man, every time I explain this company, I always get it wrong. But it's
I put you on the spot. Sorry.
It's hard to explain it, but basically he does a lot of commercial work, and basically like robotic camera arms that you can do special effects stuff with. Just look it up. It's called Camera Control.
Okay. Thanks, Joe, for being on with us on this podcast. It was great to have you. This was one of our longer ones, but we could have gone on for a long time because you're an interesting guy to talk to and somebody that was very special to us at MotoAmerica. And to the fans out there, thanks for listening to our podcast, especially during this time of social distancing. We hope we're entertaining you while you're kind of holed up wherever you are. And we just want to remind you to please subscribe to MotoAmerica Live Plus, our popular subscription streaming service. And also don't forget to get your race weekend tickets because the schedule is still on. We've got it up on the website. We've put out some statements about it. This thing is going to pass. We are going to be racing. We're confident of that. It's going to be at some point, and it's going to be great. The anticipation just builds even more. So for those Live Plus and those tickets, go to motoamerica.com/buy for complete details.
All right, Sean. Thank you for that. Thanks for reminding all our fans and to our fans. I want everyone to stay safe out there and do what they're supposed to do the right thing, and then we'll get through this thing. And before you know it, we'll be back at the racetrack, and everybody will be happy again. So I will talk to you again next week. And again, thanks to Joe Roberts for joining us today. It was awesome to have him on there. It's great for American road racing to have him that we can all look to in Moto2 and cheer for him and cheer him on and claim him as one of our own, because that's exactly what he is. So I thank you guys, and we'll talk again soon, Sean.
Great. Thanks, Paul. See you.